Ladies and gentlemen, this will be my review of WWE's newest DVD set that was released this past Tuesday, entitled Ladies and Gentlemen, My Name is Paul Heyman. This was a highly anticipated DVD set ever since it was announced, I believe back in February, maybe before that or after that. I remember it being announced, and I remember Paul Heyman putting a trailer up himself of pretty much, like a 30-second clip or whatever, titled the Paul Heyman Story, which was supposed to be the original name. Obviously it's changed before the release. And I remember just being highly anticipated, really excited for it, because Paul Heyman is my favorite, as he calls himself, advocate of all time. It's just, to me, Paul Heyman is just, oh man, you can't really go wrong with Paul Heyman. And, like I said, going to set, I was kind of, iffy about how they're going to do this. I wasn't sure it was going to be one set, or one disc, I should say, or 2 discs, or 3 discs, because it's a manager, what are you really going to put on there? It's going to make a 3-disc. And obviously they made a 3-disc set. They were obviously were able to find the footage to make a 3-disc. And I'm happy for it, because he deserves 3 discs in my opinion. And just really, was really excited for this set, and did not disappoint in my opinion at all. Great set here. Definitely go out and buy it at Walmart. You can actually get this for $14.95, I believe it was. $15 basically. Go out to Walmart if you buy the DVD version. Definitely worth it. I know a lot of people are buying the Blu-rays because of Blu-rays extras. You know me, I don't like buying the Blu-rays. I know it has more content, but I don't have a Blu-ray player in my room. I do have a Blu-ray player in my family room, but I'm not going to go through the hassle of, unplugging and plugging into my room and taking it back out, plugging it back out there. It's just a hassle. Down the road, I'll probably buy the Blu-ray, when it's cheaper down in price. But as for right now, I sell for the DVDs. And, to me, DVDs are more fun to get anyways, because, they're better to look at, when you look at the artwork and everything. It's more fun, and to me at least. But yeah, enough of me blabbling on, and let's, jump right into this review, guys, because that's what you guys click on this video for, obviously. Let me take the camera off the stand first. Let me get my little magnifying glass right here and jump right into the video. Okay, as you can see on the cover, you got a big picture of Paul Heyman right there, him in his suit. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman. 3-disc set. Very simple yet effective cover here, so I give it a thumbs up. I like the cover. And you go to the spine, 3-disc DVD set. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman, with a picture of Paul Heyman right there, the number or whatever. Go to the back, pretty simple. Again, you have Paul Heyman right there sitting into the chair with the description on the back saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman, and I have a lot to say. Long before my client, Brock Lesnar, conquered the Undertaker's streak at WrestleMania, I earned a reputation as a person who directed superstars to success. So this year, while continuing to guide superstars to the bright lights of stardom, I found time to give you a front row seat into the greatest mind sports entertainment has ever seen. Find out how an attorney's son from Scarsdale, New York, infiltrated sports entertainment as a teenager and became one of the most revolutionary forces of all time. Sit back as I shoot from the hip on my life and career while you celebrate my vast contributions as a producer, promoter, manager, writer, general manager, advocate, and of all creative genius. So keep your mouth shut, your ears open, and listen to one of the greatest stories ever told. If you're lucky, you might even learn a thing or two. Yours truly, Paul Heyman." That was actually really good. You open it up, look at this sick inside. You got a great picture right there of Paul Heyman with the WWE Championship with CM Punk right there. The voice of the voiceless. And on here, right here, you got, or on this panel right here, you have Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman. Heyman raising Lesnar's hand at WrestleMania 30th year. The one behind the one in 21-1. Great, panels right there. It's really, looks really good. And you open it up, here's the inside. You got disc 1, you got disc 2, and you got disc 3. Behind disc 1, you got Paul Heyman with the whatever that thing is called, the set thing, the action thing, you know what it is. Behind disc 2, you have him just standing there with the mic. And behind, get in there. And behind disc 3, you have him on the little set chairs which says Heyman on it. So there we go. And so that's what the disc looks like. Here is what the pamphlet, whatever you want to call it, looks like. There are the chapters. Sorry for my my shadow. There's the chapters right there. I don't know if you can see it. It's on. It's black on red, so it's kind of difficult to see it. So those are all the chapters right there. And here on disc 2, you have a bunch of promos. Look at all those promos right there from Paul Heyman. just a ton of promos, man. This would have to be something you have to watch when you want to watch a Paul Heyman promo or something. I don't think you'd be able to sit and watch all these promos at once. That's just doing too much if you ask me. And he has some extras right there. He has some stories and he has some teasers. That's pretty good. And on disc 3, you have some more promos from Paul Heyman. And of course, you have 3 matches from the entire set. So yeah, that's good right there. But yeah, let me put the camera back on the stand so I can get into the review now. Alrighty. Dun, dun, dun. Alrighty. That looks about right. Alright, so let me put this right in the middle right there. So yeah, this set, going into it, I was very excited. And, I walked out very pleased with the set. I'd easily say it's one of the best sets WWE's ever done. I wouldn't go as far and say it's the best set they've ever done. I know a lot of people are comparing it to the CM Punk one, saying they enjoyed it more. Me personally, I wouldn't say I enjoyed this more than the CM Punk one. I think for separate reasons. CM Punk, I believe, because he's a wrestler, and Paul Heyman was a manager. I think you got more into the mindset of Paul Heyman and his visions on things. Whereas CM Punk, you pretty much, you go through his career and what it took for him to become, the wrestler that he was. So I think it's complete, 2 different documentaries because, they have 2 different backgrounds. But I'd definitely say this is definitely up there as one of the best ones they've ever done. I'd definitely put it, I want to say top 5. I really can't construct a list of top 5 documentaries right now on the spot. I want to say it's in the top 5, but if it's not, it's definitely in the top 10 for sure. But top 5, it may be just cutting the list, or might just miss the list for me. I don't know. I'd have to construct a list, but I can't do it in the spot right here. But this documentary was it was very well done. It didn't open up with the your regular video package, highlighting the wrestler's career, or in this case, manager's career. You pretty much got it opened up with showing the clip from Paul Heyman's promo the night after WrestleMania 30. By the way, if you see the CM Punk panel or whatever, moving, it's because of my fans, not because there's a ghost in here, in case anyone was wondering for whatever reason. But yeah, it started off with showing his promo, basically going over Brock beating the streak, and then Paul Heyman actually buried himself a little bit. It was a unique opening to me, because it wasn't your average showing highlights. It was just pretty much people talking about him, like you saw on the TV commercials when Paul Heyman. People talking about Paul Heyman, describing Paul Heyman in a few words or whatever. That's basically what it was. People just showing people describing him in one word or something. And Paul Heyman actually buried himself. He actually called himself a disappointment for his mother. His mother was a Holocaust survivor and his dad was an attorney. And he pretty much called himself a disappointment child because he pretty much wasn't what his parents, I guess, expected him to be. But yeah, it was a unique opening. You go into it, it discusses how Paul Heyman got into the business. What caught his eye was him flipping through the channels, saw Vince McMahon interviewing superstar Billy Graham. Right then and there, he was pretty much connected to wrestling. At the age of 11, he opened up his own movie poster business where he would actually, I guess, make and mail movie posters, which I thought was pretty interesting for an 11-year-old. And when he was 13, when he had his bar mitzvah, he actually took that money and made his own wrestling magazine. He'd print kind of newspaper article where he'd print up his own pictures, and he'd post them in the newspapers and distribute them. So he's pretty much like the wrestling news / magazine distributor for his area. And he talked about how he actually got into wrestling, or he didn't get into wrestling. He talked about how he got into to the shows. He was a photographer. He would go to the shows, and he'd actually piss off the other photographers because he was trying to get the best image. And there's one photographer actually get interviewed where he talked about where I think his name was Bill Apter or something like that. He was talking about how he'd try to get a shot, and right before he took the shot, Paul would elbow him and mess his shot up to get his shot. So it pissed him off, and he talked about how he snuck in to he snuck in. He even admitted when he was a kid, that's where the bullshitting began, where the hustle, he called it, began. How he would hustle his way into pretty much wrestling shows how he got into the Vince McMahon Madison Square Garden show. He pretty much faked his way in there. That's how he became a photographer, and he pretty much became the main photographer for WWE. Taking pictures and whatnot. And it discussed about how he went to how he got into a production meeting at an NWA show with Dusty Rhodes was the head creator or head of creative. He snuck into the production meeting once, and he sat in the very back where he couldn't be seen, and Dusty Rhodes spotted him, pretty much called him over and pretty much, said, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, I'm trying to learn." And Dusty's like, "You can't the right person to learn from." So pretty much, he kept showing up to the production meetings, learning more information from Dusty Rhodes. Talked about Studio 54, how he started working at the age of 19 when you're supposed to be 21 and over to be there. But he started working there as a photographer. He actually booked his first wrestling / event. He made an event where Ric Flair was accepting an award, and also the debut of Big Bam Bigelow. So that was a pretty unique story. He actually talked about the Studio 54 thing on Steve Austin. Was it Steve Austin? No, it wasn't Steve Austin. It was Chris Jericho's podcast about a month ago. So it was kind of refreshing to hear. But yeah, he talked about how he got into the managing business and whatnot, or he became a manager. Pretty much he had nothing else to do. He was out of photography and everything. So he pretty much, groomed him into the role of a manager. Just pretty much tried it out, and he pretty much fit the mold perfectly. He's just, natural born manager. Talked about how he went to different territories like Memphis, and he was hated in Memphis by Jerry Lawler. The feud with Jerry Lawler, including Austin Idol, was just a classic. Jerry Lawler even admitted that he hated Paul Heyman. He just didn't like him. And he went to AWA, was the manager for the Midnight Express and whatnot. And pretty much went over his managing roles and how he was just such a hateable manager, and talk about going to WCW and commentating with JR, and very pretty much learning from JR pretty much a lot of things, and it really helped him out with his career going forward. And he talked about how he was fired from WCW, but he can't really talk about it due to settlements and whatnot, so he couldn't really go into details about why and how he got fired from WCW. But also before that, they pretty much went over a lot of things like in WCW when he formed the Dangerous Alliance with Steve Austin, Arn Anderson, and whatnot, and then he got fired for whatever reason, we don't know. And then they pretty much talked about how he got into ECW, because Jim Crockett wanted Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman didn't really want to be in the wrestling business anymore. He said he was done, but Jim Crockett cut a promo on Paul Heyman, basically saying, you know what, you're either gonna bitch and moan, or you're gonna pretty much get into the back, get your head back in the business, and give your vision of what you want to happen. And that's what inspired him to pretty much make ECW what it was. They heavily talk about ECW. Why not? ECW is Paul Heyman's #1 thing. That's the thing he's most known for. So they talk about ECW a lot in the documentary. But there's a lot of things you probably already knew about if you watched the rise and fall of ECW. There were a lot of things they already went over in that documentary that went over on here. So there was some new information that you probably haven't heard of, but there wasn't a lot of things on ECW I think that you didn't hear on that documentary. I talked about the balancing checks and them going out of business and whatnot. So a lot of the things they pretty much covered in the rise and fall of ECW. So there weren't a lot of new information, but I think you definitely found a newfound respect for Paul Heyman. How the wrestlers described how he would get guys motivated to cut promos out. They would cut promos for hours and hours and hours for a 30-second TV promo to get aired. So he pretty much, Paul Heyman was a perfectionist, and that was one of his downfalls. A lot of people are saying. We talked about how he went to WWE because, he pretty much had to, and how people were pissed at Heyman because he didn't even tell anyone besides Tommy Dreamer that, ECW was going bankrupt. He just debuted on Raw, and no one knew that it was going bankrupt. But Joey Styles, pretty much, admitted why, Paul Heyman didn't admit to going bankrupt, because if he would have went bankrupt, then every check he would have wrote in that 90-day period before then would pretty much, the bank has a right to recall the money. So all the wrestlers would have been screwed that got paid in those 90 days. So Paul Heyman, went, pretty much went those 90 days by. He, waited for those 90 days to go by, and then he filed, because, if he would have filed in those 90 days, then, pretty much all the wrestlers would have been screwed as well that got paid in that 90 days. So, that pretty much clarified a lot of misconceptions about, Heyman going to WWE and not telling anyone about ECW going bankrupt. But yeah, I talked about his WWE run. How, he immediately got, paired up with JR, and he would legitimately piss JR off. JR was very openly about how much Paul Heyman pissed him off. Excuse me. And whatnot. Then, they pretty much skipped into, how he got paired with Brock Lesnar. Pretty much how Taz pretty much told, Paul, check this guy out. And, Paul checked him out, and he loved Brock Lesnar, told Vince about it, and Vince like, no, you guys may be a pair. And they were a pair, and, were a great pair. and they talked about the brand split, how, you know, pretty much Paul was put in head creative for SmackDown. And SmackDown was supposed to be the bitch show, supposed to be the B show, but it was Paul's mission to make, you know, SmackDown the main show, Raw the bitch show, aka the B show. So that's what he did, you know. SmackDown owned Raw in the ratings for over a year. You know, SmackDown created a lot of stars. You know, it created guys like Edge, it created guys like Eddie Guerrero. Who else? Yeah, Brock Lesnar, of course. The list goes on. You know, John Cena. Like, they're just, his goal was to create guys on SmackDown. That's exactly what he did. You know, he made the #1 show for, you know, a while. People can argue SmackDown was a better brand for, you know, pretty much for like, you know, 4 or 5 years. So pretty much Paul Heyman did, you know, what he said he was going to do and made the #1 brand for a while. And then he talked about all the arguments he would get with Vince because they weren't going with his ideas. And, you know, that was his #1 downfall, is because he was always trying to be a guy that he wanted to, you know, he was always a boss, you know, when he was in ECW. So he's always a boss. So pretty much what he said went. And, you know, when Vince wouldn't go with his ideas, he'd just get mad over it and get frustrated because he wouldn't go with his ideas. And that was one of the, you know, main reasons why they didn't get along with Paul Heyman, which was, you know, eventually have him get sent to OVW, just got the talent down there. And, you know, he said a lot of people looked at it as a demotion, but he looked at it as a positive, because that way he was able to scout talent, and he scouted great talent like Beth Phoenix and, you know, CM Punk, as pretty much those were the, you know, 2 people that he really focused on in OVW. And, you know, CM Punk openly says all the time that, you know, and it's pretty much well known, once for Paul Heyman, CM Punk would have never existed in WWE. That's pretty much a fact. And, you know, they pretty much go over the OVW stuff, and they talk about, you know, ECW coming back as a brand for WWE, how it's supposed to be an online thing only, but then, you know, the networks got, you know, pretty much heard about it, and they bid on it, and, you know, ECW ended up being on Sci-Fi, and, you know, Tommy Dreamer made a comparison where ECW was pretty much, you know, the child where a divorce happened, and, you know, ECW was a dad, and the WWE ECW was the stepfather, and you had the father had to watch you know, his child get raised by the stepfather. So that was the analogy that Tommy Dreamer used for that. I thought it was a, you know, pretty decent analogy to use for that situation. And, you know, pretty much everyone even admitted ECW sucked in WWE. Just, you can't recreate what, you know, what happened. You can't recreate ECW, the magic that it was, no matter how hard you tried. So Paul Heyman pretty much hated it, and pretty much went, you know, he was, when he signed with WWE, he was a guaranteed 5-year no-cut contract. So they had to deal with Paul Heyman for 5 years, and then when he left, they were pretty much happy. And Paul Heyman pretty much even said himself that, you know, after the, you know, especially the big fights he had with Vince, he would have never expected to be back in WWE ever. And, you know, after WWE, he did, you know, the whole Heyman Hustle thing, created his own campaign for, Looking for Larry, I think it was called. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Looking for Larry. And pretty much, you know, just, you know, going about, you know, being busy all the time. And, you know, which we would talk about, you know, his turn to WWE, how, you know, Brock had to retire from UFC. Brock wanted to come back to WWE. He did. Invited Heyman. Heyman wanted to deal with it. Eventually, they convinced Heyman to come back to WWE. Pretty much told him, you know, Paul, we'll have a clean slate. You know, nothing you've ever, you know, pretty much done with us will matter. We'll have a clean slate for you. You'll be with Brock again. Pretty much, you know, that's the deal. And he pretty much went with it. He said, yeah, I'll do it. And, you know, Paul even said, you know, now in WWE, he's never been happier than he ever has in that company. And he's really enjoying what he's doing right now. So that was good to hear. And, you know, pretty much the documentary ended with, you know, Paul Heyman talking about how even though he's done a lot of things in wrestling and other things, the most important thing he'll ever have in his life is his kids. And it pretty much closes with the kids, so that was pretty cool to see. But, yeah, this documentary is really a must-see, you guys. It's just a little under 2 hours. I think it was like 1 hour and 59 minutes to be exact, and somewhat seconds. But this documentary is definitely check it out, guys. Especially if you want to buy it for $15 at Walmart. You can't go wrong. You can buy the Blu-ray for $20 at Best Buy. Get either version. You know, it's definitely worth the money no matter what you pay. And you get a load of Heyman on this. That's not wrong. But you get a load of Paul Heyman on this. You got tons of. I think you have like 40 promos on this DVD, which should be unbelievable. Just you get the mindset Paul Heyman has is worth a documentary. Just him spilling out his mindset, and you know, pretty much he's a fan. He's still a fan. That's why a lot of his ideas, you know, would never go through, because he's always looking at ideas from a fan's perspective. And that's, you know, probably I think it was Edge who said it. He was probably the last of, you know, our kind that, you know, a guy who's still in the business that's still a fan. You know, guys pretty much go into the business, pretty much turn into a business type person. But Paul Heyman's still a fan, and you know, he's probably one of the last of our kind. And just a great documentary. 2 thumbs up. WWE definitely knocked it out of the park with this one. The mindset of Paul Heyman is unreal, like I said. And I definitely think you'll learn a lot of things from this documentary, and you might get some different perspective on things that weren't really clarified, like the ECW situation when it went bankrupt and whatnot. I didn't know that about the whole check thing, but definitely worth checking out, guys. Definitely recommend getting it. Hope you guys enjoy this review. You get a lot into 2 hours. It's really well done. It was it was just really well done, guys, and I can't wait for the other DVDs to come out. We have the Sting DVD come out next month. We have the Macho Man set. We have the Attitude Era Volume 2 coming out. So we got some other great DVDs coming out. But I think it's definitely going to be hard to top this one. I think if anything, I think the Macho Man set might come close. Might, because, you know, obviously he won't be in it. So I don't think it'll be as good without him. But I think it'll still be a great DVD. But yeah, guys, thank you guys for watching this video. And until next time, guys, I'll see you guys later.